Tonight on CNN Presents Addicted at Birth.
What's she going through? Because she's just a little baby. And she can't talk, and she can't tell me how she feels.
America's pain pill epidemic hits the youngest generation.
We're seeing more babies being born addicted to drugs.
Beasts of war.
Next thing you know, I was staring a porpoise right in the face. Oh, it just got me again.
A one-stop secret military program that's enlisting animals to protect the country. But first, inside a polygamous sect.
We're dealing with the exploitation of children, of young girls, for sexual purposes. The people who...
Gary Tuckman takes you where most people never go, exposing polygamy's dirty secrets.
The scenery is spectacular, and the polygamous families who live here along the Utah-Arizona border have been able to live their lives with little interference from the outside world for generations. Stepping into their world is both jarring and surreal.
How many brothers and sisters do you have, Noreen?
I have 18.
And Albert, how many brothers and sisters do you have?
22. I am the oldest of 32.
These are not members of the Salt Lake City-based Mormon church known as the Church of Latter-day Saints. They belong instead to a splinter group who believe in polygamy and call themselves the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints, or FLDS.
Mr. Jeffs, do you think you can win this case?
Their spiritual leader, Warren Jeffs, has been jailed now for nearly 5 years and faces trial on 3 charges, including aggravated sexual assault on a child, charges to which he's pled not guilty.
The people of the FLDS are convinced that there is nobody on earth closer to God than Warren Jeffs. They believe that Jeffs, even behind bars, is the mouthpiece of God, that words he utters are divinely inspired. Law enforcement authorities have long been worried what would happen if Jeffs told his followers to do something violent and dangerous.
I've never seen it like this before. I've been here for 7 years, and I've never seen things so unstable and so lawless. I consider this the most lawless town in the country.
Sam Brower is a private investigator and writer who's been following the polygamous sect closely for nearly a decade, and who's written a book about the FLDS called Prophet's Prey.
Do you think there are comparisons to be made to, like, the Taliban or the Mafia?
Absolutely. I mean, even the Utah Attorney General has stated that the FLDS in this community is run Taliban style. And that's really all the FLDS church is, in my opinion, is a organized crime family.
Attorneys for the breakaway sect say that kind of assertion is nonsense, that the polygamist leaders and their followers who live here simply want to be left alone to practice their religion as they see fit. But real violence, according to some neighbors, has crept into the community. This burned-out patch of grass in the town of Colorado City, Arizona, is evidence of what authorities say is a very disturbing example. Arizona state investigators say FLDS leaders burned dozens of books here rather than let an open library be built, because they believe those books were collected by infidels.
They burnt things that didn't belong to him. They broke and entered the building.
Former FLDS member Stephanie Colgrove says she worked for more than 2 years to collect books for the new library, a library independent of the church.
And what do they do with the books?
They hauled them out of the building.
And then what do they do with them?
We assumed that they were burnt. We saw a massive bonfire and assumed all of this was on the pile because we saw books in the burning pile.
This is the remnants of one of the charred books. Looks like a medical textbook.
County investigators say the local police in Colorado City are all members of the FLDS and have ignored the arson. Those local police have not returned our calls. It's the county authorities who have worked to crack down on the church.
So you're with the county, And they're the local police, and normally 99.9% of the time, police all work together. You don't work with these guys, do you?
Not at all. Can't even get them to talk to me most of the time.
That's because, according to Mojave County Chief Investigator Gary Engels, police here obey the religious leaders first, civilian leaders second.
In your eyes, is their allegiance more to the Constitution of the United States or to Warren Jeffs, their prophet?
I believe that their allegiance is probably more to the church. I know they were required to swear allegiance to Warren in one of their church meetings here not too long ago.
Some say if you do not side with Warren Jeffs, there can be trouble.
So are you afraid for your safety sometimes?
Well, yeah, sometimes you get a little worried. They've killed some of my animals.
Isaac Weiler has lived here for years, and until he split from Warren Jeffs, life was more or less tranquil. Not now.
One time there was like 6 dead cats in my window wells thrown in there. A lot of times you go out there and there'll be a dead cat or a dead pigeon or a dead duck or something.
So that you feel is a threat to you, though, to intimidate you?
Yeah, definitely for intimidation, but I don't intimidate that easy.
Attorneys for the FLDS did not return calls for comment on either the book burning or the alleged intimidation.
We're gonna have to ask you guys to not video by our store. Please don't point that at me.
During my frequent reporting trips to Colorado City, we were often made to feel unwelcome.
No cameras allowed here. Sorry, this is private property.
And there's still a great deal of allegiance to the leader who's long been in jail. But that may be changing. Just ahead, a man who was once one of Warren Jeffs' most loyal followers now tells a very different story.
He, in his own words, has admitted to what he is. And he said he's a very wicked man, and he confessed to doing some very terrible things.
El Dorado, Texas. This tiny town is where Warren Jeffs is now in jail as he stands trial. And while Jeffs has been here, he's done one thing above all else.
Step on back.
He spent a lot of time on the phone.
In this past month, how much money has he spent, would you estimate, on phone cards to make phone calls?
Roughly $3,000.
And a similar pattern when he was for a time in a different Texas jail a few dozen miles away.
I would say probably in excess of $10,000.
And is it unusual to spend that much money? Have you ever had an inmate spend as much money on phone cards?
No.
Authorities tell CNN Jeffs has been given cash by his loyal followers to pay for the calls. And jailers say they monitor what's said, mostly lengthy sermons and detailed instructions to his followers a few miles away at his isolated Yearning for Zion Ranch, as well as to his followers in the twin polygamous towns of Colorado City, Arizona, and Hilldale, Utah. If that sounds like he's still running the church from jail, he is. Insiders say he's even been excommunicating those who disagree with him. But what it hasn't done is stop a growing feud between those who still believe in him and those who now believe he's a child molester.
I would like all of you to think if you were standing here today.
3 years ago, Willie Jessup was one of Jeff's most trusted lieutenants. He even showed me around the compound in West Texas that was raided by Texas Rangers to show CNN that there was nothing inherently bad taking place.
So where are the carrots?
Well, that's it.
And that maybe that's...
Today, Jessup says Warren Jeffs has betrayed his church.
And he said he's a very wicked man, and he confessed to doing some very terrible things, including molesting his daughter and sister and others. And I think his own words describe himself.
Jessup is talking about diaries submitted as evidence that he says were left by Warren Jeffs after his arrest in Las Vegas 5 years ago. He's talking about these pictures showing Jeffs embracing and kissing young girls no more than 12 or 13 years old, Jessup says.
His conduct will never be sanctioned by me. I don't think there's anyone in my church that will ever sanction what he has done. It's just a matter of time until they come to terms and figure out how to cope with what he has done.
According to authorities in both Texas and Canada, Jeffs orchestrated what Canadian police have called a child trafficking ring. sending as many as 30 young girls ages 12 or 13 from a polygamous compound in British Columbia across the U.S. border to FLDS enclaves in Utah, Arizona, and Texas.
And this is very serious allegations here where essentially in layman's terms we're dealing with the exploitation of children, of young girls for sexual purposes and the procurement of sex with girls under the ages of 18.
And here is that Canadian compound. Now it's self-split into factions. One faction loyal to Jeffs, the other loyal to this man, Winston Blackmore. He is a longtime polygamous leader who does not want to believe accounts of child brides moving away from Canada into the United States.
I've heard those stories. Just different people have come and told me about them, but I'd feel very disappointed if they were actually true.
A woman who did not want her face shown told us it is true. She says she has first-hand knowledge. 3 of her nieces were among those sent away to be married to older men in the U.S.
It angers me that that 12 and 13-year-olds would be taken away and given to a older man, and that he'd consummate their marriage vows. How angers me. I mean, they're just children. You know, it's not right.
Many girls, investigators say, ended up here at this FLDS compound in West Texas, where we tried to get some answers.
Hello. It's Gary Tuckman with CNN, and we're doing a story about Warren Jeffs.
Cars and trucks passed in and out, but no one came out to answer questions.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Warren Jeffs' attorney declined to comment.
The people who live on this ranch in one of the most isolated parts of Texas are not only loyal to Warren Jeffs, they're the most loyal of the loyal. You're only invited to live here if the prophet himself approves.
And despite his long stay in jails in Utah, Arizona, and Texas, jail time amounted to more than 5 years so far. That's what Warren Jeffs is to people who believe in him, a leader to be followed and obeyed. He's pled not guilty to the most recent charges against him of sexual assault of a child and bigamy. Officials of the mainstream Mormon church reject Jeffs and his practices. But within the FLDS, there seem to be more people supporting Warren Jeffs than those trying to unseat him. How long that will last is anyone's guess. But from his jail cell here in Texas, there's little doubt Jeffs is still controlling the destiny of the nation's largest group of believers in polygamy. Just listen to this young believer in Arizona.
Tell me what Warren Jeffs means to you.
I don't know what you mean by that.
I mean, how important is he to you?
Everything.
He's everything to you?
Mm-hmm.
And are you married yet?
I'm not.
Do you want to be married someday?
Of course I do.
And do you want to have sister wives too?
Of course I do.
Like how many sister wives would be perfect, do you think, in your family?
As many as I get.
Next on CNN Presents, the new face of America's pill epidemic, innocent infants.
If you are pregnant and you know that it's harming the babies, why don't you just quit using the pills?
It's just not that easy. You feel like you're gonna die.
And later,
Reeled me in like a fish. He caught me like a bear in a bear trap.
caught by the U.S. Navy's underwater recruits, marine mammals.